To start with, hello, my name is Tafet. Welcome to my video, and let's go. Alright, quick start. This was my first video, and the whole video was about testing the deleter manga paper. I want to mention that this video is actually flipped horizontally. I do not draw with my left hand as shown in the video, and this was a learning mistake for this video as I learned later on, and I did end up fixing it. The reason why, this happened was I didn't check the video output when doing FFmpeg to transcode the video. So hopefully you'll forgive me for that. Moving on, I didn't even know there was manga specific paper before this project started. I always thought people just bought bigger pieces of printer paper and used that instead. But I came to find out that there's a whole lot of different types of paper used specifically for manga. Using the deleter manga paper, I see why it has to be the way that it is now too. It is heavier, so it's tougher, it doesn't fly around easily, easier to draw on, easier to erase on, harder to crease the paper itself, and all sorts of other great things that don't show up on the camera. I'm actually using the manga paper that has rulers and guidelines built in, but they're really hard to see as the lines are like colored in this light blue cyan color, so it doesn't show up on camera unfortunately, but it's pretty good. Onto the drawing itself, I wanted to present a 4-panel page of a hero's entrance and, random faces reacting to the character's presence and shocked faces essentially. Ending the page, I wanted a close-up of the new character's face, front and center, staring at the audience to try for, maximum reaction. Unsure how I did on it as I was mostly fumbling with measurements and such throughout the video, as I was getting mixed up on how much space I should leave in between the vertical and horizontal spacings of the panels. But I think the panels itself were divided consistently. Content itself was a bit barren, but I'll hopefully get better at detailing as time goes on and, fleshing out what I would do for a manga page. My first character sheet, and I got to record it, which is nice. So here I am drawing a character I like to name Major in honor of the Major from Ghost in the Shell. I like the movie Standalone Complex and I haven't watched the Rise, sorry. Anyways, tangent aside, before all of this extra stuff, the main topic I'm trying to get at is I'm drawing a character sheet. What is a character sheet and why am I drawing it? A character sheet to me is a commitment to myself that I want this character to look this certain look when I draw them later. And we'll use this piece as a foundational reference material for whenever I do draw them later. Question: so why am I drawing this? For myself mostly, so I can glance over at the sheet whenever I need to straighten out any inconsistencies when drawing the character. But the simple answer is it's more personal, and it's because I'm not very good at drawing. And I've been drawing for a little while now. I'd give it like 6 years, and I realize I go off model a lot, like a lot. So this is mostly to help me keep in line with what I want to draw. And by keep in line what I want to draw, like I want things to be consistent. I want them to be proportional and I want them to look good because manga is mostly a visual medium, and if things don't look good, you guys probably won't read it. So, yeah, this is just to get me in line. Back to the character sheet. Before this, I never made a character sheet, so I looked online to see how others made character sheets. And I kind of just went and took things I liked about how they laid out the designs and did it myself. So I have the character on the left side of the page. The character is front facing. The height is measured in head lengths because I wasn't meticulous enough to detail out all character heights down to inches/centimeters. Side note that I usually draw my characters in the nude first, and this choice to dress them up with clothes afterwards and flesh out details has become a habit for me from a while back when I first learned how to draw bodies. Onto the detailing, there isn't much to say besides the characters stand in the neutral stance with their hands by their sides, and usually the left hand with palm facing the audience. In the top right corner, I draw a side profile with the characters' heads facing left and right, because often the hair I draw isn't the same on both sides, and that needs to be considered when I'm trying to point the camera to look at the character's left/right face. I do a simple tube top and waist high skirt for Major. as it's simple and easy to draw. Below the side profiles of the face, I draw a side profile of the chest to hips to show how the clothes wrap around the body on one side. I keep the side profile of the body real simple and make all the clothes symmetrical because I'm lazy. Onto the bottom of that are the shoes worn by the character. This was one of those things I really wanted to keep in the reference sheet, as clothes can flow with the air and be more organic if portraying movement, but oftentimes shoes are just like the extension of feet to me. They're very background and unimportant when drawn correctly, but if you draw them wrong, things look really wonky and off really fast, at least in my opinion. So I spent a bit of extra time to make sure the shoes look consistent too. I draw the front profile of the feet with shoes, and a side profile too to also combat off modeling slash inconsistencies. After that, I draw Major's left hand holding a katana to get a feel of how long I want the handle to be. And who doesn't like doodling swords in their spare time, especially katanas? I realized at some point to go back to finish the Major's right face profile and the inner side profile of the heel and foot just to make sure I didn't leave out anything I may want to reference in the future. Finally, for the character sheet, I end up with some doodling time, non-serious drawing time where I draw Major's face in goofy and over dramatized expressions from different angles. So, character sheet for Barber. Uh, Now that I have experience with the first character sheet I made with Major, I can say I built up some confidence and started making the character sheet for the second character, and his name is Barber. As the name implies, he is a barber, so he has a bunch of barber accessories and, etc. on him. Same as the last character sheet, I started with the height of the character and made Barber 7 heads tall. In the middle of the drawing process, he looked a bit short at 7 heads tall, so I added a bit of extra height by making him 7.5 heads tall. The design of Barber is inspired by Tite Kubo's Tetsai Tsukabishi from the series Bleach. I'm so sorry if I butchered that name, but that's where I got my inspiration from. And I added my own spin on how the character would look, and I ended up with a head that was bald, the small handlebar mustache, and blocky eyebrows. The physical body is very similar to Kubo's character, but the clothes were inspired more from American military fatigues. Barber wears a tight fitting t shirt so I can draw his bulging muscles easier, high waist camel pants, and calf high combat boots. On top of the t shirt, I added an apron design I was inspired to draw from a mismatch of Adam Savage's apron and other apron images I found online. Some detailing I wanted to include was some barber accessories in the pockets of the apron, but more importantly, I wanted to add the apron's waist tie in front, as I had learned that from my time wearing an apron at one of my old workplaces. For the glasses, I went with two different designs, as I liked the circular frame one and aviator style sunglasses, as I felt they had this cool old feeling about them. Beyond the features of the character, I wanted Barber to have this feeling of an experienced veteran who looks, kind of middle aged but still in shape, and I hope that was expressed in how the character looks. Character sheet for Karen. Continuing down the list with Karen, this character sheet gave me a bit of trouble designing because I had a general list of ideas of what I wanted, but no concrete decisions on how I wanted to combine those into a character, if that makes any sense. The way I solved that issue was by looking at real life people who had these characteristics and based my character to be similar to them. I think the saying is art imitates life, or was that the opposite? I don't know. So, Karen, yes, the name itself evokes a certain image, and I'm trying to use that to my advantage. Karen was a bit of a hard one to draw, as I didn't have much experience drawing larger models, but gave it my best anyways. As the previous character sheets, I started with a simple wire structure for head, rib cage, arms, pelvis, and legs. Then I fleshed them out with lines curving around the wire structures, kind of like how you would draw in balloon font. This gave me a great basis for my initial design and worked pretty well for the body, but I wasn't completely happy about the torso and breasts, so I made them larger. Another thing that gave me a bit of trouble too were the hands, specifically the fingers. I want the fingers to have this roundness to them, so I did the same thing I would with the rest of the body and tried making the lines curved, but it only made the fingers look like sausages, which was not what I wanted. So I went back and straightened up the lines of the fingers that touch each other while keeping the corner of the tips of the fingers still rounded. I think this finger design was a good balance of keeping the fingers large, but not turning them into hot dog fingers. The rest of the character was also a process in balancing, as Karen's nose needed to be big but still fit her face, and her feet needed to be small to fit her frame but large enough to show to the audience that the fat applies to her feet as well. The dress Karen wears was not something I planned at all, as I decided spontaneously after looking online for references of plus size models in dresses and took inspiration from what they were wearing. The rest of the character sheet, after deciding how Karen would look, turned out to also be a slight struggle, as I had to keep in mind a couple things while drawing. The three things that I had to think about were the knees, shoes, and jaw of Karen, and they all revolve around the idea of what does too much fat look like on these prominent features? With the jawline focusing on the chin area, what does it look like in a side profile of her face? With knees, the kneecap stands out prominently, but what does it look like with fat deposits around the kneecap? And what would that look like? Finally, the important part of the feet, and what shoe would Karen wear if she was an actual person? All these dots were things I had to think about in the moment when drawing and consider, as I thought they were important in selling this character as more than a caricature of any other woman who was fat. And I want to emphasize Karen was a woman who happened to be fat, who lived fat, dressed with fat, walked around with fat, and what kind of decisions would this lead her to make? Ultimately, it ended up with me making the kneecap somewhat indent inwards, as the fat would cover the edges of the knee joint. The jawline would protrude more when seen from the side than what you would see from Karen from the front. The biggest decision of making Karen wear sandals came down to the decision of what would a big woman wear casually on a day-to-day basis, and what would be for me to draw. These two questions led to drawing her wearing flip-flops, which also had the added benefit of letting the audience see Karen's bare feet wearing the sandals. To explain what I mean is the contour lines of how a foot that is fat and how it resides in a confined space like a regular shoe would hide the fat with the shoe size, where the audience wouldn't know if Karen has feet that are fat or does she simply have a bigger shoe size. With the sandals, I can show that Karen actually has relatively small feet, but still show that they are larger due to her weight, having the best of both worlds. Oh cool, it's this video. So I'm drawing different heads later in this video and want to focus on that part first, so this commentary might be out of order. So later in the video, I was just generally playing around drawing on a piece of paper, and to be transparent, this is what I do all the time behind the camera when I'm not recording. I am very happy I'm able to show it to you so I can talk about it and go deep about this topic. The idea I'm talking about is trial and error and just generally trying new things when tackling a creative field like drawing. So when I have trouble visualizing how a character would look exactly and I'm like lost in the sauce of things, I like to doodle and just slap on different designs I think might look cool and kind of kit bashing but for drawing. If you don't know what kit bashing is, it's taking pre-made models pieces and putting them together with other pieces that didn't come from the same box, where the end goal is to make something completely different. I kind of think of it like Lego, where you just combine multiple sets to create something new along those lines. It's the same with art. I'm trying different hairs out on a blank head and just seeing where it goes. Do note, I do take inspiration from online, so I am often just scrolling through Google's fashionable hairs of 2024 or whatever modern year it is to just see what people stylize themselves with. But yeah, back to the videos itself. I'm drawing some character heads for bullies A, C, and R. These designs come from what I've seen in life, and I've just copied them and put pencil to paper what I've seen. On specifics on the design, I wanted to mention the idea of hair and the depiction of volume, and then move on to the topic of braids. For bully A and C, I'm still kind of learning what it means to draw hair, and what I mean by that is some people's hairs are very fluffy and voluminous, while some people's hairs are very flat and thin, generally more tightly packed. In my mind, this is a critical feature of a character's look. As the quote echoes in the back of my mind, perfection is a lot of little things done well, by Marco Pierre White. Note, I quote him, but I don't follow his philosophy, so if he turns out to be a bad person, I hope you don't get mad at me for reiterating his quote. But I do like the quote, and it means to me that the detailing in the hair, when it's flat, like with bully A, basically tells me that The less hair shown, the more telling of how flat the hair is. Where the opposite is true with Bully C, where her hair is drawn large and poofy, where it basically is like engulfing her head. Bully A's hair instead is more framing the face in a sense. I might be using that word wrong, but the point I'm trying to make is that the detail of how big the hair is in relation to how the hair would move in universe was considered, and heavily too. Because if you think about the opposite, where you're trying to draw a character with very condensed hair, but have the character's hair frizzy, your message doesn't come out to the audience. So saying something and then backing it up with the details, that something is the way I say it is, and here are the examples to prove it, is a great way to reinforce to the audience eyes, yes, I was going for this look, and here is some detailing to back that up. I think that was a bit long-winded, but I hope the message came across. Moving on, I wanted to talk about braids and detailing with hair. I will say right now, I hate drawing braids because I'm bad at them and they're tedious. Straight up don't like drawing them, especially finer braids like the one I drew with Bully R. But if I already decided I want this certain look for the character, I'm gonna have to do it whether or not it's annoying. So complaining aside, I found that braids aren't all bad, especially when you get to drawing them in detail, as I found that there's more wiggle room when drawing them small. What I mean by this is if you look deeply in the video and look at the braids individually, they are not all symmetrical or even neatly drawn. They were kind of haphazardly drawn because I was being lazy and wanted braids but didn't want braids so well drawn that they had to be perfect, if that makes any sense. But I still wanted the braids to look, like braids, so the character at a glance looks like she has them. If we were to take a glance at Bully R's head, she has individual braids and lots of them across her head draping down to her shoulders. Sweet. But as the artist, I know I am expressing to you back home that sometimes art isn't perfect in the details and doesn't always need to be, as sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I believe that was applied here as the parts here, the individual strands of braids, came together to form a recognizable hairstyle that you could tell at just a glance, which is what I'm ultimately aiming for. And the further goal beyond that is to be an effective communicator back to your brain. At least that's the goal I'm still working towards. Like, imagine me saying I drew braids and the character is bald, and I finish off by saying, oh, imagine them. Well, that's not good communication. That's lazy to the point I don't agree with. Continuing with the Bully character designs in this video, I'm drawing them full body using the head reference sheet I created in the previous video. Already making use of it, which is nice. So for this video, I want to talk about expressing personality, even if the characters are similar. To be exact, what I mean is uniforms and expressing a character even if more than one of those characters are wearing the same uniform. To start at a step before this, to ease into the topic, I wanted to go over what is being drawn first. First, we have the Bully characters lined up left to right, tallest to shortest, Bully R, A, C respectively. Just like the previous characters drawn first, they are drawn bare, and then I dressed them in their outfits. For the bullies, they are wearing an outfit sort of resembling a school uniform that a kid bashed together, taking inspiration from pictures of Japanese school uniforms. I wanted to note there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of different uniforms in Japan, and they range from neat and tidy to casual to sailor uniforms and everything in between. I say this because the uniform I made could very well have been already made before, but I probably didn't see that specific design. I just took things I liked and slapped them together on the fly. I'm saying this so if this uniform does resemble a school's uniform, I don't mean to step on anyone's toes and take any likeness and call it my own. So yeah, back to the outfits. All the bullies are in uniform, consisting of a dress shirt, plaid bow tie, cardigan, and a skirt that drops to the knees. This is where the small differences are shown with the sleeve lengths and shoe choices. For Bully R, the leftmost girl, I chose to have her roll up her sleeves all the way to her shoulders as I wanted her personality to be more tomboyish and thought, what would a girl with that personality do to a uniform? So I came up with sleeves that were rolled up all the way to give an initial glimpse into her personality. For the shoe choice for Bully R, I had her wear sneakers that resembled Air Force Ones. I thought the coupling of the short sleeves with the sneakers gave off this athletic feel to her, as she is the tallest amongst this trio, and this fit her quite well. For Bully C, the rightmost girl, I chose to have her sleeves all the way down to her wrist, and to have her wear shoes that resemble Converse sneakers. I chose this combination as I often saw in school smaller girls wear these types of shoes, so in my mind it's associated now. For why the long sleeves are a thing, this might be a stretch, but I thought it implied Bully C dressed herself more according to how the uniform would be dressed normally, meaning she followed the rules more or something. Probably a stretch of the imagination, but I thought it made sense. For the last girl, Bully A, the middle girl, I had her have a pulled up sleeve up to her elbows and her shoes were flats. The reason I chose to have her sleeves higher to her elbow is because I recall during my time growing up, either watching shows or people getting into fights, that when people got serious, they would push their sleeves up, symbolizing they were ready for action. And for the shoes, honestly, I can't tell you any concrete reason besides I thought they fit her and looked good. On to the last bit of drawing, which would be the faces. I want to mention that I drew the faces on the character first, but I drew it bigger afterwards above their heads. The reason I did this was mostly to remind myself later down the line, when I do draw them again, how I did it in the first place, and give myself simple instructions from past me. Kind of like a gift to myself, similar to comments in code, just a quick and dirty helpful reminder. Final note for the bullies reference sheet. You should have noticed I didn't flesh them out all the way like the previous reference sheets. This is because I didn't feel the need to flesh them out all the way, because in the story they won't be doing a lot of movements or special poses, so I just thought I can probably be lazy here. But this might come back to bite me in the butt later when I get down to drawing them more. We will see. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. Mama F character sheet. So this is going to be a long topic about art fails and how to work around it. To begin with, I wanted to draw a character that I had in the back of my head for a while, and the character would be named Mama F. I wanted her to be tall, wearing a sundress, a big sun hat, big full eyelashes, and just look like those supermodels you would see on fashion magazines. So long, tan, and handsome. That's not right. Long, tall, and beautiful is what I meant? Right. I wanted her to be beautiful, with those standards in mind, but retrospect, I think those ideas weren't concrete enough to create a character I was happy with. What I mean by this is sometimes the ideas in your heads don't directly translate to the page when drawing, and this is one of those experiences for me. I started drawing Mama F just like the other character sheets by detailing the height and starting a skeleton with a circle for the head. I proceeded with everything I thought I would want by fleshing out the arms, legs, head, and face, where I added nice thick eyelashes with big eyes and finished her head with some hair that draped down her back and covered the left side of her face. I added an outline for what would have been a giant sun hat and started detailing instructions for how to draw the eyes when I realized that I didn't like what I was drawing. My thoughts at that moment were simply, I don't like this, even though it checks all the boxes off the list of features I wanted, and that kind of sucks. That moment when you realize that the image in your head of this cool, beautiful woman that you thought to yourself, for sure, no, the audience would love, turned out to be this. It's just not as great as your intentions wanted it to be, and that is a hard pill to swallow, and in the past I would have forced myself to keep that design no matter what I felt about drawing it, and just tell myself it fits all my criterias, so it must be right. Well, sometimes even if something fits all my criterias, it still might not be right. And maybe I was too caught up in checking off a list instead of designing a character I would like drawing. A pitfall I am still learning how to accommodate for. But yeah, after this, there was some time between the videos due to some sickness, but I am doing slightly better every day and feel much better now compared to that time. In that time of rest, I was still thinking about how I wanted Mama F to look, and took what spare time I had to be free to think of another design without the list of expectations I had previously. In that week or so, I had a thought of, what do I consider beautiful design for a character? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. So I started thinking through all the characters I've seen in manga, anime, and I settled on two separate designs that I really liked and wanted to take inspiration from. The first was the Pokemon trainer Oleana, and the second character was Mimimi from 100 Girlfriends. The reason I chose Oleana as one of the inspirations was because she had this unique look about her that made her look mature but not necessarily old. For Mimimi, I chose her because I absolutely adored her princess-like design with her long hair, from bangs that dragged down from the top of her forehead, ending in slight curls, and I generally loved the way she looked. So now that I've picked out two heads that I wanted Mama F to be based on, I started drawing here and there, noting things next to some of the designs, what I liked about it, what I didn't, to give myself some direction as I was still lost in what I wanted. I took features from Mimimi first, as I adored the big draping bangs, and tried to incorporate it with Oleana's hair silhouette. I drew it 3 times with variation on eyes and facial angles, but I didn't love what I was seeing. So I went and tried to start smaller with eye designs inspired by Oleana's eyes, and drew multiple of those with variations on eyelash size. I didn't like those too much, so I tried variations on Mimimi's eyes and tried adding bigger eyelashes, and I still didn't like those either. Finally, I stumbled upon taking Oleana's eye design and making the proportions larger, similar to the size of Mimimi's, and extending the eyelashes ends further. This design I quite liked a lot, as it reminded me of a villainess's face. With this face, I immediately tried it out with a new hair, inspired from Detective Conan, but found that the hair I chose to add didn't fit well, so I scrapped it immediately, choosing to try other designs. After doodling a bit, the other hair designs didn't pan out either, but at least I ended up with a face I liked. Now that I had a face for Mama F, I moved on to try on error with hair designs that would fit the face I created. First, I redrew Mama F's face on a blank head, so I had something in direct view to reference. I then began with the silhouette of the head that I wanted to create. The outline is what I wanted to keep in mind when designing, as I wanted the neckline to be skinny while the head itself staying round. How I would compare it is like an upside down water droplet. I then went on to create nearly a dozen or so designs that fit within that droplet design, and narrowed down 3 designs that I really liked. From left to right, I'll name them V shape, loose hanging, and straight horizontal to make it easier to reference. For the V shape here, I thought it was a bit too much at the time of drawing, where the pointed end of the V would point down the nose line of the face, making my eyes get drawn towards it more. I then proceeded to try out the loose hanging design where the hair curled towards the forehead. I initially liked this design the most when I was drawing it, as it had this kind of I'm different and I know it feeling to it. The final design, straight horizontal, was very similar to the V shape, but I wanted to draw it in full with a face, as I wanted to see the difference between V and horizontal. After all 3 were finished, it stuck out to me that the one I liked the most while drawing, loose hanging, was the one I liked the least after comparing to the other 2 besides it, thus eliminating it from the competition, so I crossed it out. Next was a quick comparison with the remaining 2, and it was as simple as the V-shape haircut has more personality to it, and I kept it, while crossing out the horizontal one. With the head chosen, I could finally move on to the character sheet redo. As always, to start out a character sheet, height, head, body frame. And since I already had the head done, I copied it over from the reference sheet. The outline of the body was fleshed out pretty fast, but here is when decisions started cropping up. What size are her breasts? What will she wear? How does the dress fit on her? I decided on big but not overly big breasts, as I wanted them to fill out the top of the dress she would be wearing. The dress started out as squares, where the top 2 corners would connect to straps that would hang off Mama F's shoulders. To give it some flair, I crossed the middle 2 straps, but when I did that, I realized maybe I should add an ornament here to give it some flair. At that moment, I thought to myself, maybe Mama F's haircut could lead me into how the rest of her outfit would look. This is when I thought to myself, she kind of looks like an old Egyptian pharaoh. And then it clicked for me that I wanted her to be mildly Egyptian themed. The rest of the dress she wears came pretty quickly, and I even added in a bit of pyramid triangle design to let her belly button show too. The dress opens up from the left hip, and where the 2 dress pieces meet, I drew a bangle decorated to look like a sunflower. I then move on to the heels she's wearing. They're a simple wedge heel with an X at the ankle that connects to these wings, feathers that sit at the bottom of her shins. I'm not actually sure what I would call these things, but they looked cool, and I thought they fit. One last detail of the body was the bangle that loops around her left thigh. I just wanted something extra there because the upper leg looked a bit barren. After, I drew Mama F's left hand, and specifically left thumb sticking upwards. The nail on this thumb is shown to be a portable projector, holographic display kind of thing. Onto the rest of the character sheet, the shoe side profile were kept very simple, and the dress also kept pretty simple, but I decided to add some diamond cutouts that run along the spine just for some fun. The side profiles of the head were not as simple, as I needed to think about how they would look and design on the fly. Please excuse the eraser destruction. I realized that the eraser was breaking midway through erasing and just brutally ripped the top off of it. Gomena sorry. Back to the head profiles. I thought they turned out fine, if not a little plain looking. I think I was caught up in the hair that goes forward, sweeping under each ear, that I forgot to consider adding in hair from the back of the head, draping downwards. This shouldn't be matter too much, but it does make the hair cut from the side look like a pre-made wig. I end the page with some face expression doodles. I like the shocked one the most, as it reminds me of Looney Tunes' exaggerated faces. Daughter F character sheet. So you know the drill now. New character sheet. Daughter F is now who we are drawing. Height, head, body frame, body fleshed out. Cool. So the first big thing is that I made Daughter F very skinny in comparison to her height. This includes all parts of her, from shoulders, waist, thighs, calves, hands, feet, basically everything. I wanted her to be skinny in general, as that is a key feature of her design. Since she is skinny, the question comes up, what would a skinny person wear normally? Well, they would wear something to keep warm, since they don't have as much fat as other people. So I drew on a shoulder sweater to keep her nice and warm. To further this idea, I added in some shorts, old school leg warmers, and finally leggings. I did end up ditching the shorts immediately, as I felt they were too bulky and clashed with the character's appearance. Finishing off the character sheet is a side profile of Daughter F's body and left and right of her head. I did want to point out some things on this character sheet though, specifically the shoes she wears and the bottom of the sweater. First, the shoes. I wanted her to have these old school leather loafers to imply class difference. Like, I have never seen people wear loafers in my life outside of private school uniforms besides rich people. For the sweater, I wanted to talk about weight and implying weight in a static medium like pictures. Weight is not easy to show without multiple frames of references, like with a medium like animation. For example, with animation, I can have an object on a spring move in one frame slowly, accelerating downwards, then the next frame as it basically off screen with the spring stretched out all the way. With these two reference points, I know before and after, and that's all the information that is needed to convey, hey, this is heavy. But the question that came up for me was, with the bottom of the sweater, how do I make the sweater look heavy without multiple references, multiple frames? And honestly, I never found a good solution. I just sat the bottom of the sweater at her hips and let the middle part drag downwards, creating a slight arch. With the side profile, I made the sweater sit midway down the butt, with the back of the sweater not totally contouring to the bottom of the spine slash top of the butt. This was to imply that the bottom of the sweater was pulling taut enough to create a straighter line. I'm still unsure about whether or not those details make sense to imply that meaning, but I tried my best and hopefully it came across. I wanted to talk real quick at the end here about a kind message someone left. I only started recently uploading, and my first comment was one of praise for the leg warmers that Daughter F wears. I want to say thank you for that comment. I'll probably treasure forever as my first comment I got for my art, and a reminder to myself that I'll never know what part of my drawings will be liked by someone. That insight is a great reminder to me that I should always try to add in different things to my art. To that commenter, you know who you are, and thank you for that compliment. Truly, I was so happy when I read it. Outro time. So now that this overview and voiceover has finished up, what now? So to be transparent, everything that I went over and created over these videos has been all foundations for drawing a manga. That manga will be called Fashionista. I'll be doing the same thing I did for these videos, where I take several videos and voice over them while the playback speed is like super fast. I probably won't do anything as lengthy as this though, so the videos will hopefully be shorter than this behemoth, as it condensed 19 videos into one. It will probably be an overview per couple pages finished or something like that, depending on how much I have to say about them. For all watchers, this will be a slow and steady thing that will take a while to finish, but I do want to record and draw it all to show the process of a beginner trying to make a manga. And I hope you stick along for the ride. But yeah, that's the plan for now. I hope you have a wonderful day, and even if you don't, I hope you have a wonderful day.